You're welcome back. Many thanks for staying with us here on the show. Now, 28 African anti-corruption bodies have presented a fresh list of actions to combat corruption in African countries. The list was presented to the African Union as the AU Day Against Corruption is marked today. Ghana Integrity Initiative, one of the 28 Transparency International anti-graft bodies, is demanding action. We'll bring you that sound shortly, but in the studio with me is Michael Boydi. He's Corporate Affairs Manager at the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Mr. Boydi, it's good to have you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So, what is this whole thing about, and how does it play out at the end of the day?
Well, I think that this whole thing is about a fine opportunity that's been handed to African people to impress on their leaders to now move away from the rhetorics, the promises, the commitment, and then really get into action. We think that it is about time that all the promises that have been made over the years seen some action, and that is why we're making this list of demand. This list of demand is coming at the back of what they call the UK Anti-Corruption Summit that was hosted in 2016, where a number of commitments were made by African leaders that participated, and yet 2 years down the road, very little action has been seen. So once the African leaders themselves, after the 30th Head of State Summit in January, decided that they are declaring this year as a year to fight against corruption, and this day, 11th July, is set aside as the day to fight against corruption. Then that day to commemorate a fight against corruption, then we have no choice but to remind them of the promises they've made before.
Let's look at the list that you presented. What's in this list?
Well, it's a cocktail of promises that has been made that we also demand. We are looking at
these are actions that you want
them to take.
The AU to take.
Absolutely. If heads of states within the AU
to take.
Exactly.
So what are
let's
these?
Let's take public procurement. You know, the number of issues, infractions that almost all these countries have a law against, and within their very respective laws are the best practices how to undertake procurement. Now, every now and then, you know that about 30% of our budgets goes into procurement, and that is where most of the, the real thing exactly. So, right? Yeah. So the question is, you have the law. So why then is there so much corruption with procurement in our respective countries? It is because something is not being done right. And here, what are those things that are not being done right? We say that we want greater transparency in public procurement. So our government, for instance, promised e-procurement. They promised debarment from those who engage in procurement-related offenses. They promised that, look, they would publish, they would set up, on their website and publish all the lists of people, bids, and follow through who won the bids and so on and so forth.
But by your checks, that has not been done.
It is not. The debarment, if you go to the public procurement website, you will only see that of the World Bank, nothing from Ghana. The e-procurement has not been done yet. Open contracting has not been done yet. When we checked with the Public Procurement Authority, our understanding is that they've given the contract to somebody and they are working on it. But for us, it is slow in coming. We admit that progress, there has been some progress. I mean, that we must say they've made some effort, but it is slow in coming. The rate at which corruption is hurting our country, and in fact the continent as a whole, is so mind-boggling that we need a faster and a more expedient action rather than.
So one of the highlights on the list is the procurement.
Exactly. Then we can talk about illicit financial flow. Here again, we all know, and it's been said over and over and over, that our leaders, when they take our natural resource revenue, they go and save it abroad. So Buhari jokingly said, I think Buhari said at one of this foreign meetings that, please bring back our money and we won't come for AIDS again. You understand me? So what we are saying is that the African leaders should check this illicit financial flows, and we believe that when we do that, we will be able to deal with corruption. Then there's the most recent one, which is very, very critical. The chair to the AU advisory on corruption, who was our own Honorable Batidan, Daniel Batidan, resigned recently and accused the AU of being corrupt.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why he resigned.
Exactly. So we want some investigation to go into that, so that we get to know, get to the bottom of that. Who are you expecting
to investigate the AU?
Well, the heads of states. No, the heads of states must now push for the investigations to be done. You understand? If we release it, if we are committed to acting on what we are saying, or then we the citizens will just think that, well, it's a talk shop. They go there and then talk and nothing happens. So we're saying that if we are committed to seeing some action and reducing corruption, then it must start from the AU.
I see.
Accusations have been leveled against them.
Right.
Let's see some action from there.
Have you forwarded this list already to the AU?
Yes, we've done that through Transparency International.
Okay, so through your mother organization, and what was the response?
We haven't. We forwarded it today, so.
It was forwarded today.
It was forwarded today.
Are you expecting to exactly what practical steps do you expect them to take after they receive this?
There are two things. They will respond to it. And then beyond that, we want to see some action. We want to see that, look, when our head of House of States meet and they come back home, they should begin to talk to the issues that we have raised. Then we know that
are these the immediate steps that integrity?
Oh yes, because you see, these are because these are promises that they've made, and they made these promises in 2016 at the London summit. Beneficiary ownership is one of them. When they did the benefit, immediately Ghana, we amended the Companies Act and included a beneficiary ownership clause in the Companies Act. When we did that, till this day, we still haven't passed the LI or established the register. So quickly we come, we do something, and then we leave, we go back to sleep. We're saying that, yes, what happens is that companies hide behind the the Companies Act, which allows the companies to take a legal form on its own. So people can do all sort of corrupt practices, and then they go back and hide. So they establish companies. Let me give you a typical example. Isn't it amazing that anytime government changes, there is a mad rush to register companies? Who are behind those companies and what are their expectations? Your guess is as good as mine. Now let's move the veil. So when people register companies and contracts are given to be, because you see, if we don't have a proper beneficial ownership law or regime working in Ghana, if public procurement even publishes the list of people who are winning contracts, how are we able to tell who are behind those?
Right.
If we say, oh, let's have the right of information bill, when these bills are not lifted and a register is not kept, how do we get the information? So we need a place where the information is collected. Then when the right to information bill is passed, which we hope that it will be passed before the current parliament rises, because
hopefully,
as we speak now, they are debating. So
and it's in the 18th year,
exactly. So what we're saying is that if that is passed and we don't have a register that collects the information, then we are back to square one, because then the information will not be available for us citizens to help to fight against corruption.
Okay. All right. Well, I believe that the AU has taken note of your actions. We'll see whether or not of your request. We'll see whether or not they take action on the request that has come to them. But let me take your very final words. If you had the head of the AU right here before you, what would you tell him?
Stop talking and act.
Hopefully they'll hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Michael Boedi is with the Ghana Integrity Initiative there, and they are using this day, which is the AU Day, the AU Day on Corruption.
AU Day
Against Corruption, to remind the AU leaders or the leaders within the AU that you made some promises in 2016 in London, and you have to live by those promises, starting from procurement and investigating the AU itself.